looky here. It's the Pat and JT podcast.
Pat and JT podcast.
This is a Pat and JT podcast, and if you didn't hear, that's Psychic Andy Myers is with us. Psychic Andy, it's been a minute. Hi, buddy.
Top of the morning to you guys.
What is up?
Yeah. We were just talking about our new table. Our new tables that we have. Once we moved, we decided to upgrade and get a little bit bigger table for the adults. It's kind of like the big kids table.
Yeah,
right?
it is for sure. Yeah.
Well, unless Pat's over here, then
I'm
it's
in the little kids table.
He's over at the little kids table.
I'm never over there though. I'm always over in my corner. My cushion, it literally is a cushioned corner.
Right.
I have cushions all over the place.
Yeah.
It's true.
Exactly
But it's nice. I like you guys' new place, and
Thank you.
Everything looks great.
Thanks,
Thank
buddy.
you.
It's not the easiest to find, but we're getting there.
Well, I used my intuition to find it.
Did you?
So, yeah.
Yeah,
and
and we thought you were sitting out front, and she was like, "Is somebody out front?" And I peeked out the window. I'm like, "Yeah, I think that's Andy. I see his hat. You have like the patented hat that you. What style hat is that?
Some people call it a newsy hat or a flat cap. Yeah, it's kind of just an old-fashioned
Andy
kinda,
Cap.
it's
Andy
an
Cap,
Andy
the
Cap.
cartoon.
Andy Cap.
Should
Have you ever
patent
seen
it.
Yeah,
that
it is.
cartoon, the Andy Cap?
No.
Andy Cap?
No.
Yeah, that's weird. That's crazy.
That's
You're right.
what it is.
That's
Andy
it.
Cap was a cartoon. CAPP. Andy Cap. And I think I don't remember he was like, I was little, and so it was way above my head, whatever his humor was.
I don't even remember.
It was in the Sunday paper. I do remember him being in the Sunday paper.
You have to find some pictures, but that's
I'll
that's
look
crazy.
it up right now as I'm sitting here with my tablet
Right.
that's fully charged.
Good.
So
Well, I like my hat, and people always ask, do I wear it so that, connect with spirits better? Do I wear it to shield myself from the ghosts? And I'm like, nah, it's the only kind of hat that I don't look goofy in, so I'm kind of limited on
I
choice.
love how people always have for whatever it is. Maybe it's because you have like your fence is a different color, different shape. They always have this whole story behind why you do it, and really the reason why you do it is something usually like because it's the only hat that fits my head.
We've
Just
talked
because.
about
Yeah.
that, as a matter of fact. Talked about like the woman who, when she'd make a roast, she'd always cut the ends off the roast.
Right.
Because her mom always cut the ends off the roast. And her daughter asked her why she always did that. Do you have to do that? Well, that's how we always did it. Well, we'll ask mom. And so she asked mom, and mom said, well, that's because my mom. So we asked grandma, and she said, because my pan was too small.
Right. Totally practical.
That's why I cut the ends off the roast.
People are like, it lets the juices floweth out, and it's just grandma had a small pan.
Now you have the Costco-sized pan that can fit two of those bad boys in there.
You're still cutting the ends off the roast.
Still
It's
cutting the ends off.
No. All right, so there's your Andy Cap cartoon.
That's awesome. It looks very British.
It is a British cartoon. It's an
Oh, well, there
English
you go.
cartoon. There you go. See, they
You are
made that correct,
psychic,
right?
How do you know that was British? I
Because it says it's an English cartoon right under it.
was trying to give him a little bit of credit.
After I said that, I saw it says English. Like, oh, yeah.
It does look, though, like it's
intuited it.
Yeah, intuited it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like a detective type cat. That's
Let me see here real
That's
quick. I was
cool.
going to look
If
at
there was a
this.
hat or a helmet that you could wear to shield the spirits, would you buy one?
God, like I don't know, like bubble wrap my
Yeah,
head,
yeah.
protect me from the spirits.
Spirit wrap?
I don't know. And that's how people recognize me is the hat. So if I want to go incognito and just kind of like
Wear glasses and no
I
hat.
just don't wear a hat. I just
Yeah.
do my hair, and I still have hair. Thank goodness.
You should have like
walk around.
your logo should be a silhouette of a side view of your face
Yeah,
because you have the hat,
yeah.
right?
There you go.
That would be absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
See,
just
I'll leave it to
looking-
marketing geniuses like you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
right.
that's actually a really good idea.
We'll get on that right
Yeah.
away. Yeah, I'm just looking through the Andy Cap thing. I never really knew what it was about. I just remember it being on. And he does have a little cap kind of like yours.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Isn't that nuts? Wow.
So
that,
psychic-
that was me out in the parking lot.
Okay, that was
Yeah.
It wasn't Andy Cap.
I was checking something on my phone. I wasn't trying to be a creeper,
That's what we thought. Maybe you didn't know if you were in the front of the right building or
Well,
not.
for a second, I wasn't sure, but yeah.
We don't have a sign yet. We'll have a sign soon.
Yeah. Gotta
something.
Budget before you can get a sign.
I was playing with window markers,
Yeah.
window crayons and window markers, kind of messing around with that. And it looks like I was playing around with window markers. So we erased that. So,
Hey, if you can play around with window crayons all day, I'd say you have a pretty good job.
right?
Yeah.
That's my.
or you have a disorder.
That too. I think we're all just barely on the right side of crazy.
Right.
No, you should put like a bat signal in the air.
Yeah.
Pat and JT podcast.
That would be awesome. But
we
there,
could-
do you
Parkville
know where we
Media.
can get one for free?
Yeah. We also have a budget.
Yeah.
I know a guy.
You know a
know a
guy, a
guy?
bat signal guy?
I always you always see those in the sky. You'll see like sometimes the 3 lights going back and forth. You're trying to figure out where it's coming from.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Where is that starting or originating from?
Yeah.
My daughter Sky, we both have this love for mysteries, and she's only 5, but she's she talks about Bigfoot, she talks about UFOs. She finally understands what it
Shocker.
is that I do, and
Shocker.
she talks. And so we saw one of those, those big, huge, wavy spotlight things, because there was a new club opening up over by Maple Street, and she looked up and she was like, "Dad, what is that?" I was like, "Oh, that's just a UFO." And she kind of slunk down into her car seat, and she starts.
I love it.
Her eyes start darting back and forth.
That's
I felt
awesome.
bad. It was
No,
like
that's awesome. That's
it's like
hilarious.
it's like, no, buddy, it's just a spotlight.
You should have rode with it and been like, let's get out of here, Sky. Let's get out of here.
Oh my
And then I'd have to
been
start setting
awesome.
money aside for therapy.
right,
there.
whatever. You just start. Trust me, just start doing that anyway.
Yeah.
Pat had to do that.
Yeah, just start.
Where
contract-
did you start it when they were young? Scaring them?
Oh yeah, you just have to. You just have to. You have to wake them up.
The
Otherwise-
best story is the one where he cut his head when he was shaving his head.
Oh, and you had blood all over the
Oh,
place.
because it bleeds
Bleeds
like
like
crazy.
crazy.
And it was a decent slice of skin. Yeah, there's blood everywhere, and I just had blood on both my hands, and blood was in because it was at the beginning part of my shaving. So there's a lot of shaving.
He's in the
cream
shower.
on.
Oh, no.
So it looked like strawberry meringue, like all over my. So I had blood everywhere. And I rubbed it down the shower door, and I yelled for my daughter to come in. I go, Sophia! She was like 5 or 6.
Oh,
She
my
came running.
God.
She goes, oh my God! Dad!" and took off. It was the best.
So you found out she wouldn't help.
Yeah, so I
In
found
an
she's not-
emergency.
she is not going to be a first responder.
Fight or flight. She flew.
Yep, she flighted.
We're just checking them off the list, honey. It's okay.
Yep.
Oh, dear
And
Lord.
nurse off the list and first responder off the list.
Looked like a crime scene in there.
Right.
Oh.
It was
Louise.
awesome.
My God.
She's how old, Sky, now?
She's 5.
She's
Yeah,
5.
That's
She
crazy.
just started kindergarten, and I remember when she was at summer camp. I mean, she just loves this kind of thing. And one day I walk up, and all the teachers just have their just face palming it, and they're chuckling, and I'm like, "Uh-oh, what happened?" And they're like, "Oh no, Sky's just going on teaching the whole class about Bigfoot." You know,
Awesome.
so
Aren't you
that's my
proud?
girl.
You're proud, right?
Yeah, I am.
Totally
I
proud.
totally am.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's my girl.
Oh my
So
God.
no, she's doing great. Kindergarten's going well, and I've been staying busy with giving readings and doing events and doing some travels, and I know you guys both love the fall season
the
as well.
best.
So I mean, right around the corner.
I know.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
kind of getting excited for
Everything.
Yeah, let's talk about something that you have been doing, your paranormal dads.
yeah.
And what exactly that involved and how that got started.
Yeah, that Paranormal Dads, it's a podcast I do with a humorous slant, and we discuss the world's monsters, myths, and mysteries in about 45-minute episodes, and it's my 2 buddies, Eddie and Pat. And it was Eddie's brainchild. He has a few different podcasts going, actually, all part of something called the Podcast Arcade Network.
Nice.
And we did our first live show last weekend at a Scooter's Coffee. Fielded some questions from the audience.
That's
and,
awesome. That's fun, right?
It's such a great time.
Yeah.
And in fact, recently was contacted by a major television network who was kind of sort of tossing around the idea of maybe possibly someday doing a reality show based around the paranormal dads. So we'll see if that pans out.
That's
Sometimes
cool.
those things don't, but I think it'd be a lot of fun to
Yeah.
try to track down Bigfoot, or
Right.
go to
Just see
put
where
your
it
toe
goes.
over Area 51, that line, just to see
Right.
if what'll happen. And
Get it cut off. Yeah.
That would be awesome.
Is Area 51 that's kind of been demystified?
Good job.
Was that a word?
That's a
Yeah,
word.
it is. I timidly said it.
Demystified.
Demystified? Because we're kind of knowing more
Well,
information about it.
not
and
really.
But we know its existence
They,
anyway.
they released some papers, right? Because the president promised he was going to declassify some papers. But now they have the event coming up in September
No,
where
is
they're
that the
going to
run
storm
thing?
51.
Yeah.
And everybody's supposed to meet. And remember, the little town right outside of Area 51 is some people are happy, some people are a little bit pissed off, but the hotel's completely booked
Yeah.
for that weekend. They have like 9 rooms. And then a bunch of people are planning to camp. And so they've got some people showing up with supplies
Yeah.
so they can feed them.
That's crazy.
A souvenir
I thought that
stand
had already
place.
happened, like it went away.
I think it's like the mid or end of September.
I think it's in September. Yeah, and it's
21st.
Some of the hotel owners in that area, they're like, yeah, these people are all nutcases, but we're going to make a lot of money.
Right. Let's triple our rates and cash in.
Right? I think that's what some of them have done too.
You know what it's going to be? It's going to be like Woodstock, but with people wearing foil hats. That's what it's going to be. And there's like,
you're right.
there's like 1 million people signed up on
That-
Facebook saying that they're attending.
That's
They
crazy.
had this guy, Matty Roberts, who created it, and he said it was just a farce. And he admits he started this whole deal about they can't stop us all, because we want to see what's in Area 50. Can't stop all of us, if we all show.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know is all these people are showing up to raid the base, and it's set for September 20th. He posted it in June, and so now he's kind of like, I am not a part of this because I am not going to be held responsible if anybody gets hurt. And the military's saying this really isn't a good idea, folks.
Yeah.
Because we can't.
Like, what do they? They get in there and they get across the fence and they're like, okay, we're here. I mean, what would they do?
The military's there because it's a military
Oh
installation.
yeah, the military's not going to let it happen. But like, once they get in there, if there was a serious thing, like, what would they do? Just look.
I think they want to find because they believe that there are aliens there. They believe that the technology is there and that. Like everything from the crash in New Mexico, and everything else, they think that all of that stuff is contained at Area 51, and that they use Area 51 because you can't even look at it on Google Maps. Mm-hmm.
Do you think there's
there.
aliens and stuff there?
Oh man, I've been back and forth for years.
I think there is.
You think there is?
I think there's something.
I think this is my thought about aliens is that. Either way, either they are real or they aren't, but either way is terrifying. Mm-hmm. Because if they aren't real, that means we are it in the entire universe. And that to me just doesn't make sense that we're it in the entire, and that's just our galaxy, but all the other galaxies surrounding the Milky Way, right?
Right.
There's got to, something else has to be out there.
Right, Andy?
It just has to.
I think what's going to happen is if they do storm Area 51, and they're not going to get in, but if they do, what's going to happen is, Joe the farmer who's had a 6-pack of beer is going to hijack one of the UFOs and just fly it up.
Yeah, basically like Independence Day.
Like Independence Day.
When the president, shot down an alien or whatever.
Oh my God.
That's right.
Oh my God. But seriously, I think that because they said that they've tried to, that's where they've worked out the technology for stealth flying. And that there's got to be and other types of maneuvers.
There has to be something. Maybe it's not there, but there has to be something somewhere.
Otherwise, why would it be so damn secret?
Right.
Why would it not be on Google Earth?
Right.
At all?
Right.
And it's like a tourist spot. So years ago, there was a place near Area 51. It's called Freedom Ridge, and people would go up there with high-powered binoculars and night vision cameras just to watch weird lights flying back and forth out of the base. And the government said, we'll just expand the boundaries a little bit. So they cut off Freedom Ridge and overtook that piece of property.
I think I saw something on like Science Channel or something about that. Yeah,
so
that's interesting.
You can't see in there now.
Can't get close. And the internet ruined it for them. Because
totally.
Up until until Google Earth came along, right? Because
internet ruined a lot
of
things for a lot of people. I mean, the internet was just a lot of people like, no.
Now we know.
Yeah.
There's probably a Google Earth somewhere of like one of us walking down our sidewalk, picking our nose or something.
Right?
Remind me of that. I got a story to tell you about that, but go ahead.
But seriously, I mean, when that came out, prior to that, so say 20 years ago, I don't know how long Google Earth's even been around. Probably not even that long. But I mean, prior to that, they could keep it pretty secret.
Yeah.
Because there was no other way to see it. Nobody can fly over it.
Right. Yeah.
So there was no problem. And then all of a sudden the internet, and then everybody starts really getting curious because the more they say no, the more people want to know. And then the president's saying, okay, we're going to declassify some. Yes, finally. But there are people that are out there that say they know that they're in the know, and they say that if they release the truth, it would be more than most people can handle.
Yeah, I believe that. I think there's a little truth to that. For anyone listening who's into UFOs and this kind of stuff, there's a new Netflix show you have to check out. It's called Bob Lazar. It's this guy's name, Bob Lazar, and subtitle is called Area 51 and Flying Saucers. So this thing blew up.
Bob Lazar, okay.
Bob Lazar, Area 51 and Flying Saucers. It's this guy that since the 1980s has been on countless interviews publicly saying that he worked in a section of Area 51 called S4 or S7. Yes. He's passed all polygraph tests, and he talks about it like he never falters, he never stumbles, and he's talking in detail about how these things work. He's literally been inside of one.
Jeez, really?
And it was like anti-gravity mechanisms the whole night. He said the technology bordered on magic, and they studied it for years and never did figure out how it worked. But it worked, and he's touched it with his own hands and seen it with his own eyes. And so this documentary kind of goes into that. And it's legit. Even stone cold skeptics that I know who have watched it, they're like, I believe the guy 100%.
Really?
Like,
Oh,
this
God, I
dude's
gotta
telling
watch
the
that.
truth.
And I've seen, and it wasn't this guy because I pulled him out. He looks like a young Stephen King.
He does. He really
kind
does.
of, sort of.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? And maybe it's the glasses. I don't know. Well, I don't know. The rest of his face kind of does
He looks
too.
like Stephen King. I never noticed
Yeah, he
that
does.
before.
Just a young Stephen King. But anyway, I've seen another guy as well that talked about the same stuff, about his working there and that he was under serious threat at the time. And this was back before the internet. So this had been, he was probably in the 70s and 80s, probably in the 70s, I think this guy was. But the fact that this guy's come out and talked about this stuff openly, the other guy feared for his life and for his family's safety.
Right.
If he talked, like you'd get suicided. You know what I mean?
Like, well, we kind of know how that. Yeah,
we know how that works,
yeah.
right? And it's like Men in Black kind of thing where you don't talk about that stuff. You know that wasn't supposed to happen. And on his deathbed, supposedly he told his family members or a family member about what he had actually done and what he'd seen. Same kind of thing. I believe it.
So do I.
sorry.
There's just no way there's no way.
I think Bob Lazar's maybe his motive was like, I'm going to go so public with this that if anything mysterious does happen to me, you'll know it was the government that did it. You know,
That's
but
interesting.
It's super intriguing, and I don't know.
But maybe the not knowing is kind of what's intriguing for people, for everybody.
it is,
Because if they're like, okay, here's the deal. This is where they are. They're on planet whatever -5. That's where they are. That's where they live. This is what they do. It'd be like, oh, all right, well, we can't get there. So it'd be like we just move on to something else.
Yeah, what are you gonna do? I guess I'll go to work on Tuesday.
Right.
Like, what other choice do we have?
Right.
I know, man. That's something. That is,
You mentioned Google Earth though.
Oh, I thought I was going to say, okay, we're talking about picking your nose. What would you have?
Well, it's weird. You said Google Earth and a picture of yourself on Google Earth. Just what do you think the odds are of, and it kind of goes into the spiritual realm, of just being captured on Google Earth, like a picture of you on Google Earth?
Two things. Have you ever seen the Google car?
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, it just drives around with a big old camera.
Yeah. So you're on that.
Right.
Street Maps or Street View, right? The Street View. I don't know what they use for Google Earth.
Satellites.
I mean, but do they have their own?
I read a story on that. I don't think Google has their own, but they lease like
because it's crazy.
Yeah.
How close you can get. You can zoom in.
Yeah.
Like when you pull up the app, and you've got the whole Earth is there, and then you pick out a place and it just spirals
amazing.
in to whatever, the Eiffel Tower, or something like that, and you're just, holy crap, here we go, and then you put in your home address and you go over there,
super close,
and you get in close, and I mean they've shown some of the pictures that have been caught on Google Earth in compromising positions.
Well, yeah, and so like just in general, the odds of you not knowing, if you driving behind the Google car and you're waving, that doesn't count. But like not knowing that you're being captured on Google Earth. So about a year ago, maybe Beth and I are researching. I don't remember it's something with my family, and it was on my grandma's side, and we're trying to find. Then we start researching where her family came from. My grandma was born in Italy. Was born in the United States, and her parents came here from Italy, like Sicily, I believe. So we're going down this whole thing, and we're talking about her brothers and sisters, my uncles, who I hadn't seen. One of them specifically was my uncle Pat, my uncle Frank, one of the two. And we're
so Pat's a family name. That's
no big deal. And so we're talking about, I think it was Uncle Pat. We're talking about him, and I'm like, yeah, I haven't seen him forever. He had such an amazing house in Cape Cod. And so we were looking up the address. We found the address and got on Street View. And we go to the Street View and look up at his house. And there he got captured on Google. He's standing right there.
On there.
Street View. He's standing on it.
My God.
Because you know how you can advance it, right? You see the picture, and then you advance a little bit, and you see a different angle. Yeah. One angle, he's walking through his yard, and the next angle, he's walking up to the front.
So he was walking around his house.
Yeah,
when they were
it was
doing
but he wasn't looking at. Like he wasn't looking.
He didn't know.
He had no clue. It was just it was weird.
Did it have the timestamp on the bottom, like what year it was from?
I don't remember. I don't remember because I know when he died, and it was recent because I knew the vehicles in the car and when he died, so I could kind of tell the general window.
Yeah. Because some of the views they have on there are 5 or 6 years old.
Mm-hmm. I saw one at my house, and there was a car parked in the driveway that I didn't recognize.
Someone's getting in trouble.
Yeah, so either it was a person scoping out my house, or it was taken before I moved in there.
Right.
How awesome would it be if you had real-time Google Earth?
Okay, let's
Game
okay.
changer.
Then let's go this. That'd be okay. The people who have Ring, right?
It's like that, but it would be like that, but scaled up.
Yes.
Recently, so this was in the news the last few days. They were talking about the police department contacting the providers of Ring, which is what is that? Amazon? Who has Ring? Google.
I do. Oh,
no.
yes. I'm like, I thought you asked.
That's
sorry.
The minute he gets
You know
on his
what?
phone,
Here-
he
no, here's
hears
the thing.
every third word.
Pause. We got because Heidi's going to be on our podcast in the next couple days, right? And she sent us a text about something, and I'm trying to read through it, and it's like typical scattered all over the place. So, and you said, "Who has Ring?" I'm like, "I do."
Yeah, it's like listen, either all the conversation or none of it. Okay, so you just okay. So anyway,
It's Amazon.
Amazon
Yes.
has Ring. So apparently, what the problem is the police department were trying to figure out a crime, and so they contacted the provider, not the owners of the product, about obtaining the names of the people who have that service in this area so they could access their files. So yeah, you're kind of it's kind of like, it's like you have 24/7 surveillance of a street because your Ring obviously goes out to the street.
Right.
But they were circumventing and they were getting the information from the provider about who has the product, which is like, okay, I know there's not a HIPAA for Ring, but
there should be something that you have to check off.
right, that they shouldn't be able to just say, oh yeah, that one has it, that one has it, that one has it, and then they can go access your files. You have to give permission before they can get your files.
Yeah.
But
I would rather if
that
they
brings up the problem of 24/7 surveillance when you
Right,
you have the expectation of some privacy when you're walking on your own street, don't you?
I don't know about
but
the
not
street,
with Google Earth anymore.
but yeah, I guess the street. I
In
would
your
think,
yard?
I would think that like I wouldn't mind if they had like access to the live stream. Like if they needed to get on, check my doorbell, like the view of the street, whatever. But the files, it just seems odd. But you've said they have to ask permission.
You think about the third party, the provider. If you access your house from your front door, they know pretty much what you wear. They probably have seen your car. They know what you look like. So there's this huge database. Again, we come all the way back around to where Big Brother's watching you and they're keeping all this information on us. And now they have one more way to access.
Yeah, I think privacy is just going to be a thing of the past
It's
pretty
just
soon.
going
right?
out the door, isn't it?
It is. It totally is.
Anymore, someone that is buttoned down and doesn't share everything and talk about stuff, they're almost looked at as weird.
Yeah.
I think you're not on Facebook, you're not on, you don't have Amazon Prime,
Okay,
you don't
so
have what? It's like
if
you're
you
weird.
Google my government name, you don't find me. You find 3 other people with the same name as me. But
Who are you?
But
Right?
Just when you think you
I'm
know
not
her.
on.
Right.
I am nowhere on.
She's in a witness protection program. You poor thing. What did you see?
What did you see? Are you okay?
But I'm not. You couldn't find anything.
Did you intentionally do that? Like, did you go have a service scrub you?
No, I've just never been on because I've always been
Because with your real government name, you have
right.
a name.
So I've always used.
But what about your middle road name? Like your name that some people kind of know.
what name?
Jill Thomas.
Oh, that name?
Yeah.
Only in relation to Pat and JT. Really?
What's
You can
your
find my Facebook page,
Yeah.
which is under Jill Thomas. But yeah, kind of crazy.
Yeah.
I feel kind of left out.
Yeah. What?
But it's too late to jump in the pool now. I'm sorry. I'm just
Right. No, yeah, it's hey, whatever. Everybody knows you by Jill Thomas anyway, so whatever.
And it's not like I don't put everything out there anyway under that name. So
Well, and
what's the difference?
like with you, Andy, with the job that you do with connecting with not dead people. I'm talking about live people, but you have to be. They're very vulnerable with you, so I'm assuming I don't know if they expect you to be open to them with your kind of stuff. Like if you're closed down and you don't have my real name and no phone number, I would think that'd be kind of off-putting for them.
Yeah, I don't know. First of all, I think living people are way more scary or far scarier than dead people. Fair enough. Sometimes it freaks me out. Just the thought of, if somebody really wanted to find out where I live, they probably could.
Yeah.
It's few and far between.
It is kind of scary because that information is public,
public.
but now it's online. So it used to be you had to get in your car, drive downtown, go to the assessor's office.
Right.
And then other people knew you were looking for a particular address or looking up a particular name, so other people were aware you were doing the search.
Yeah.
Now you can just sit at your kitchen table and do it.
And a lot of the crazies were probably too lazy to go down there and do it. They'd rather sit in their mom's basement eating Cheetos.
That's right.
Yeah.
Mom couldn't give him a ride during business hours, so he couldn't get down there, right? But you're right.
That's right. But I try not to think about it. The crazies are kind of few and far between anyways. We've over the years, I've had a couple, wackadoodles where I had to get authorities involved and everything. But
Yeah.
Wow.
but
You haven't done life right if you haven't dealt with a couple of wackadoodles, right?
that's right.
So it's been a few months since we've talked to you. Any new sort of like unbelievable stories that you have, like ghost encounter, not necessarily you personally ghost encounters, but things you've heard of, evidence you've heard of, stories in the news that you wanted to talk about?
Oh gosh, it's always something going on.
Yeah.
Actually, last night I had a dream that I was back in my grandma's house after she passed away. I moved in there in 2008, and it was haunted as you know what. And I just had a dream last night that I was back there, and there was ghostly activities going on in the house. But it's been a little calm, little quiet lately. Me and my two paranormal dad buddies, Eddie and Pat, next weekend we're actually going to Grand Island.
Yeah.
There's apparently a movie theater there called The Grand, and it's apparently haunted. It's like super old. It's really beautiful and picturesque and kind of old fashioned. So what
It's
they're
in
doing,
Grand Island?
yeah, it's in Grand Island. It's called The Grand. And my two buddies are self-proclaimed nerds, so there's like a mini comic book convention. Nerd.
That's the real reason.
Okay. Oddly enough, I've learned from them that the paranormal and the nerd genres, they do overlap a little bit. I mean, there's a lot of comic books about ghosts and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, well, all right.
Whatever. We're going to head down there, and they're going to do the comic book thing, and then that night there's a free screening of The Goonies that we're going to check out.
Oh, yeah.
And then my friend Eddie knows the owner of the movie theater, so they're going to close up shop and shut everything down, turn the lights off, kick everyone out, and there's going to just be like a group of 5 or 6 of us that are going to do a paranormal investigation. I think we might even do a live podcast.
That'd be awesome. A dead podcast.
I think we're actually going to make a dead podcast.
That's awesome, Pat.
That was good, Pat.
Thanks, buddy.
So I'm sure we'll come back with some stories from that.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to make a little mini documentary of our experiences while
that'll
we're
be
there.
cool.
So I'll have to slap that up on my pages.
So don't forget to tag us and stuff when you
Yeah.
throw that there. So when a lot of this has been happening, we've talked about this a couple of times in the podcast, and it's happened to me a lot lately, where happened this week earlier, where either you talk about someone or you see someone or you think about someone, and the next day you see them or you hear from them or you see them in the street or it's happening a lot lately.
Yeah.
Am I close to death?
Does that mean something?
No,
Yeah.
it doesn't. I love he goes from 0 to 100. I'm gonna die.
Is that a sign?
No.
Okay.
Oh, my God.
Okay.
I think what it is that when you think about somebody, it's almost like you're throwing an energetic fishing net around them and pulling them closer to you. I think people, we're not separated by time and space like we think we are. So when you think about somebody, I feel like they get that subconscious signal. And that's why they call or text or you'll bump into them the next. I guess if you bump into them the next day, it could almost be like a precognitive thought, like a premonition about an event that's destined to happen. So you think of your buddy Chuck, and then you see him at Burger King the next morning. Maybe you just knew.
Yeah, sure,
And
that's a good point.
I think you're right. You're onto something that when you suddenly think of somebody you haven't thought of in a long time, I've always thought that they were talking about you or thinking about you. And that it just like, for whatever reason, if you're open to it, that it just like trips something because you're like, God, I haven't thought of them for.
So that's true, because what you're saying is that you're sending a little ping to the universe. So when you get that random thought of someone, they may be pinging you from
And you
wherever they are.
acknowledge it, and
Yeah.
then it may just intensify,
Just slide into your brain DMs.
right? Next thing you know, you get an email
Like,
from them or a
whoa.
text or
Yep.
something crazy, and you're like, or somebody else brings up their name.
Right.
Like, oh my God, like we were talking to somebody today. They brought up a podcast that I had never heard of before 2 days ago. And 2 days ago, somebody brought it up for the first time. So they brought it up, and I was like, and it was a murder mystery type deal, this thing. And I was like, oh, I'm going to have to check into that. And then today it gets brought up again. And I'm like, that is crazy. 2 times in the same week, we've heard of the same, whatever topic it might be. But yeah, it's kind of odd how that works.
That is weird. I love it when things like that happen. I almost feel like there's 2 types of people in the world. There's believers and then there's skeptics. And I think the skeptics will push that aside as coincidence. and the believers will say, wow, that was cool, and it makes you inclined to look for more signs and more messages and more synchronicities,
kind of like the 11:11 phenomenon.
Yeah, a lot of people see that time or number, and they, it's like everyone asks, what does it mean?
Yeah. And then other people say, I never see 11:11.
Right.
And it's like, and I see it all the time.
Right.
It's just a wink from the universe, I think is what it is.
Just that moment there's 11:11. It's like, oh, that's crazy. It's 11:11 again.
Yeah, that is weird.
Speaking of actually weird stories, you asked me if I've heard anything weird. I always hear weird things. Sometimes on the spot, it's kind of hard to think of one. Just the other night, actually, I was talking with a friend, and she shared with me a cool story that I've never heard of anything similar to this. So apparently, her friend and her friend's daughter were driving in a car, and it was out of town. It was on some interstate, I believe, and a semi truck had jackknifed, and it was just like a horrific traffic jam. And anyway, the driver saw it in time, slammed on the brakes, but apparently what happened is the mom who was sitting in the passenger seat looked over and claims that it was almost like time stood still. Not only did time stand still, but she saw her daughter behind the steering wheel. It was almost like this shimmery like wave of water around her. It's almost like the energy field around her got distorted.
Hot concrete in the summer, like the water, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, almost like a vapor of some kind or a mist or something. And anyway, what happened is it almost felt like time slowed down somehow.
Jeez.
They kind of spin or careen off to the side, and they avoided this. They avoided like slamming into all the cars, and they were completely safe. So the mom was left wondering, okay, was it an angel? Was it a miracle? Did time literally slow down?
Because you wonder if because I think people put off vibrations all the time, and because we're all energy. Right.
Yep.
So there's got to be, if there's energy, there's vibrations that are being put off all the time, but it moves so fast we can't see it.
Yeah.
And so you have to wonder, because when something horrible happens like that, it does seem like it's slow motion because you see it and you're just trying to react.
And it's almost like that time slows down even ahead before it happens. It's like it happens and your brain kind of goes back a few seconds, and you're right, live it in just total slow motion.
Yeah, so it might be.
It's almost like your brain's taking a million little snapshots, like trying to process all the data.
Yeah.
And that's probably why
That's
it
a good
slows
analogy
down.
for it, yeah.
So I understood that component of the story, but in all my years, I've never heard of this like distorted bubble wave or whatever around the driver. It's interesting.
Yeah. But
I wonder what that is.
I'm glad they're safe.
Yeah.
Glad they're safe.
No kidding.
I love stories like that, though.
I know, but I think people are more open to it now. Like that happened 30 years ago, 40 years ago.
Like you're drunk, Becky.
Right? Yeah, probably.
you're
Right.
hammered.
And now it's more of a possibility, especially with all the TV shows, especially.
Yeah, that helps.
My Ghost Brothers are back too, by the way. Do you ever watch the Ghost Brothers?
No.
Oh, God,
Is it pretty good though?
They are hilarious.
They're pretty funny.
They are
Awesome.
so funny. It's one of my favorite ghosts. It's on Destination.
Yeah, but
No, it used to be on
because
that.
Destination America went away. It turned into something else, so it moved it somewhere. It moved to it like Pop or something like
Let me
that.
see if I
but-
can find it real
yeah.
quick. But yeah, their show just came back as far as Ghost Hunters, and they're really very good, but they're also very funny.
Funny helps.
Oh
You
my
know,
God!
Funny helps.
Yeah, they're serious, but also they will not pass up an opportunity to let one of them look like an idiot, and
Which is awesome.
it's so much fun. Yeah,
So-
that's a good one.
Just when you're scared enough to pee your pants, then there's a little
laughter.
little humor
Little
to,
comic relief comes in, and you're like,
Yeah.
okay, that's awesome. Yeah, let me see if I can pull these guys up. Here
How
for you.
often do you do shows?
I do a show every month at least. I just did a show in Kansas City last month in July, and here in Omaha, I usually kind of alternate. So one month I'll teach a class. My next one is September 13th. It's a class on past lives and reincarnation. And so every other month I'll alternate between teaching a class and then doing one of the Heaven on Earth gallery readings. And those are when I relay messages to the audience members from their deceased loved ones.
The past lives thing, do most people feel like that they had? I mean, I do, because it's like, you know how you're drawn to certain things or you're familiar to things, you feel more comfortable around something.
Or certain parts of the country,
The
or-
world.
Yeah, you love. I love the East Coast to me, like Maine, Massachusetts. I don't know if it's because my family was from there, or it's just I love that part of the country.
Feels like home.
Right, and I love. Yeah, it does. It feels like oddly feels like home.
Yeah. It never ceases to amaze me how many people believe in past lives, even those who weren't brought up with the religious or spiritual beliefs that they were allowed to, but they still believe in past lives. And it's personally, it's my absolute favorite topic to discuss with my clients, and almost every client who comes to see me nowadays, will spend 15, 20 minutes diving into past lifetimes, and I'll tell them, images that I see of where they lived, what they did, what their name was, how they died, some of the details of their everyday life, and it's usually hits home. I mean, it in a large way, it kind of helps explain a lot of our talents, a lot of our predispositions and quirks, even our phobias, bizarre phobias even. I remember years ago, I was, given a reading to this lady, and we dove into past lives, and, I was just describing some obscure scene from this life in Thailand where she was out on this kind of narrow boat with her father, and she was fishing, and she was about 8 years old. She was a boy in that lifetime, alternate genders, I suppose.
Sure.
But she was terrified of the huge catfish that were in this river because they were literally bigger than her.
Fair enough.
And as I'm describing this, she turns like white as a bed sheet. And so I kind of, paused, and I was like, what is this hitting home? And she said, she was like, I'm not afraid of heights. I'm not afraid of snakes or spiders or anything like that. My biggest fear in the whole world is catfish, still to this day.
That is the most specific fear, of catfish.
I was like, who's afraid of catfish? Right. I didn't say that to her, but I was thinking.
In your head, you're like, dude, who's afraid of catfish?
I mean, how do you figure that one out?
I don't know.
If our title of this podcast wasn't just going to be Psychic Andy, it would be Who's Afraid of Catfish?
I mean, it's like you go to Joe Tessa's and go, nope,
I'm out. Nope. I'll eat all the carp you want. I'm out on the catfish.
That catfish is out. Nope.
That is so bizarre. I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah. And just, things like that. But also our, talents and interests. I had this lady, and we were talking about her son, and she was just wondering about his past lives. And it just kind of popped in my head that most of his past lifetimes, he's either been an inventor or he's been in the military, like consistently all of his lives. Wow. And she started cracking up, and she said, well, that's funny because just last month he invented a military board game.
No way.
So him and his buddy up the street, they're going to pitch it to Milton Bradley or Parker Brothers, and hopefully it's the next big thing.
That's crazy.
I was like, well, he's just like he was in his past lives.
He's highly qualified.
Right?
Right?
That's awesome.
Oh, my God.
It's fascinating. But you kids, man, kids, I swear, kids are, maybe even some adults who are mildly intuitive. You can tune into those past lifetimes, but kids, I feel like they're so freshly removed from those past lifetimes. Sometimes they'll say things that maybe you can't prove, but it just makes you go, Like
it's weird.
Yes.
Yesterday, my daughter Sky, she's 5. She's kind of in that zone of, highly intuitive, but yet not jaded by the world. So she's just, she's just so pure. And so we're driving along Maple Street, and we see this really weird looking Jeep. I don't know if I've ever seen a Jeep like this. It looked old and cool. And I said, Sky was in the back seat, and I was like, hey, look at that cool Jeep. And she was like, yeah, it looks like one from the 1940s. And she's 5. And I'm like,
What?
And I've always suspected that she's my grandma reincarnated.
Wow. That gives me goosebumps.
I've written a book about it, actually, that's not quite out yet. But I was like, how? And I didn't even know what to say. I was like, what do you mean it looks like the 1940s? Like, how do you even know what the 1940s are? And she was like, I remember the 1940s. And I was like, well, tell me, like, what do you mean? She's like, I don't know how I know. I just know it. And I was like, okay, fair enough.
Okay.
I was like, if you have anything else to say about Jeeps or the 1940s, please tell me.
Please tell me. I think that a lot of kids say things like that, and that's dismissed as just imagination.
Yeah.
It's just like, oh, okay, whatever, kid. And it's like, you might want to stop and just pay attention. I've seen TV shows where they talk about kids who have explicit memories about particular places or people, situations, whatever it may be, and it's fascinating.
It is. That stuff is very fascinating.
Yeah. It's kids, man. I tell you what.
Yeah.
See, and there's no surprise that some adults hang on to it. That still, if they're fortunate enough to be surrounded by the right people.
And then you'll have some of the kids that say the creepy things. I love finding those articles on the internet. Little article of kids say the creepiest things, like babysitter's over watching little Tommy, and he looks behind her, and like, who you looking at? Oh, just that man standing behind your shoulder. He says you shouldn't go to sleep tonight.
Babysitter gone. See ya.
Better give that babysitter a big
Oh
tip.
my gosh. Yeah, I don't know what I'd do.
God. No, that's crazy stuff, man. All right, so Halloween coming up, as we talked about, fall, great time of year. Do you have anything going?
Yeah, well, the ghost hunt in Grand Island next weekend. Then usually in October, right around Halloween, I'll do a show called Positively Paranormal, and I do that at a facility called Dreamweavers that I always do my shows out of near Omaha, and that's kind of like I scoop together all the best ghost stories that I've personally been involved with, all the creepiest, weirdest stuff, and we dim the lights, we order some pizza, there's PowerPoint slides that have pictures and videos of the stories that I'm describing, and I just kind of creep the audience out for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And and
love it.
Yeah.
so we usually do that sometimes on back-to-back nights if it sells out, and so I'm looking forward to that. Tickets are not quite available for that yet, but I'm just looking forward to. I feel like, come October, I feel like Santa Claus gearing up for December.
Right.
It's just it's my favorite season.
Yeah.
Us too.
Without a doubt.
So
We're
we'll have
trying
to
to
have you.
figure out-
We'll have you back in October and have the paranormal dads on too.
Oh, we would love it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be a lot of
I
fun.
want to get the band back together and get Prism back in. And
Yeah, do something.
Josh Hurd, he's been real busy lately.
Yeah.
He's got some stuff happening,
Yeah.
which is really cool. Good for him.
It's cool to see local people that doing cool stuff.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things. You just always got to root for your friends and buddies that you personally know. And,
That's right.
All got to support each other.
That's right.
Absolutely. Wasn't it Elizabeth too from
Elizabeth. I was gonna say Elizabeth Smart. Nope.
Nope, Saint.
Elizabeth Saint. Yes.
Saint? She's doing something.
Well, she's.
Is she doing something with Josh?
Josh is on. She owns VidiSpace.
Yeah.
And he has a lot of shows on there.
Let me look on real quick. His Patreon, he had something on there.
Yeah. I know that they're buddies, but it's weird. She was on what was that? Ghost of Shepherdstown, and then
Yes.
done some other things, and then now her and Nick Groff are an item. Nick Groff, and I don't think he was married, but she was married, and now they're together. I follow her on Instagram, no big deal. She follows me on Twitter and Instagram, no big deal, and she only follows like 300 people, and I'm one of them.
Oh God!
You made the top 300.
NBD.
Oh my God!
NBD.
I always love that when somebody follows you that's semi-famous or semi-famous or whatever. You always go back to see how many people they're actually following. Because it's like the fewer, it's like, oh yeah.
Yeah, and you know who else
I'm
follows
in.
me? Captain Lee from Below Deck. No big deal. He follows
I always
like
think you say-
2,200 people, and like
I always-
150,000 follow him. So
The first time you told me, I had no idea what you were talking about because I'm like, what is Blow Deck?
yeah, Below Deck is a different, is a completely different.
And then like enunciation is
it's-
important.
That's in the
Below
adult
Deck.
section
That's
of the
right.
store. I actually sent a friend request to Bobo, who's one of the main guys on Finding Bigfoot on Animal Planet.
Yeah.
And yeah, he accepted it.
See?
I'm friends with Bobo.
Makes you feel, gives you the
my
tinglies,
God.
doesn't it?
It does, and Cliff Barakman, who is one of the other guys on the cast of Finding Bigfoot, met him in person because me and the Paranormal Dads went over to Hastings a couple of years ago for the regional Bigfoot conference, and he was one of the main speakers. So I bought a plaster cast and had
that's
Cliff
cool.
sign it.
That's awesome.
Now, how many times have you been out to that in Hastings?
Just one time.
Because it's only been around a few years,
Yep.
and it's grown to the point where because I lived in Hastings for a few years, and when I was living there is when they first started doing Kool-Aid days, and because Edward Perkins was from Hastings, who developed Kool-Aid.
I knew it was invented in Nebraska. I didn't know
Yes.
Hastings specifically.
Yes, and the first time when they did it, they had like all these Kool-Aid booths with every flavor of Kool-Aid.
That's awesome.
And then the Kool-Aid Man, and they had all this, and Kool-Aid was like, all in, let's do it. So they still do Kool-Aid days, and it's a huge draw. But apparently, the Bigfoot days, which was a 1 day, and then it was 2, and I think now it's 3 or 4, and it has moved from a hall to an auditorium to an even larger space, is outpacing Kool-Aid days.
Yeah. Well, not surprising.
And one of the ladies, I cannot remember her name either. She's from Western Nebraska.
I think her name legit was Rhonda. That's always my go-to name, but I think it really was.
The lady who organized it, you
yeah,
mean?
Isn't it?
yeah. Her and her
Jackie?
husband.
What was her name? I think it was Eileen Feely.
Feely.
Yeah.
Feely.
Something like that. And she actually has a Bigfoot museum in her house now. And yeah,
Yes.
this thing is just growing out of proportion. They should just combine them and have some guy in a Bigfoot outfit serving Kool-Aid to people.
Right. Let's have them all meet on common ground. That's funny.
What happens in Hastings?
Right?
And the guy in Bigfoot, but he has to have a hairnet on because he's serving food.
A full body
Full
hairnet.
body hairnet, so he doesn't get any hair in the Kool-Aid.
Anyway, I can't
great.
remember. Her name is not Rhonda. I'm sure of that. But anyway.
Eileen does kind of sound familiar too, or Rhonda.
We're probably
But it
all
is
wrong.
probably
It's
all
just-
wrong.
It is
It's like
something- I was
Jackie
trying to-
Stevens or
I know,
something.
right? I know it. I was trying to find it real quick. But anyway, yeah, it's huge. That's a huge deal. I'm trying to find how long. It hasn't been that many years.
When you,
either.
Andy, when you go out and do stuff, what's your website?
Harriet.
Harriet.
Harriet McFeely.
Harriet.
McFeely. Yeah, we're
So
close.
Rhonda Feely.
How did we not remember that because of Mr. McFeely from
I don't
Mr.
know.
Rogers?
I don't know.
You know,
how-
and I would think that the Harriet not so much, but the McFeely.
Harriet McFeely.
What's your website?
My website
forgot that was
is
his name.
totally changing subjects. It's Andy Loves Bigfoot. .net. It's actually Andy Myers Online.
And that how people can get a hold of you,
Yeah,
like
Andy-
just to book
Yeah,
events.
that has all my contact.
And you still
info
do
on it.
personal readings, obviously,
I
right?
do actually. Yeah, I'm leaving here and I'm going to my office here in a little bit to give some private readings. I do private readings, small group sessions, for a group of friends or family members, and then I do the big gallery readings for 50 or 100 people. So kind of on all levels there.
Yeah.
And if anyone's interested in scheduling an appointment, it's just andymyersonline.com, and I'm on Facebook, really active on Facebook, Instagram, all that kind of jazz.
All that
and
good stuff.
everywhere.
yeah.
That's cool. Thank you for coming in.
This is so much fun. I love you guys, and I love being here. And I will absolutely be. I'll tell you what, if you don't invite me to be back in October, I'll just show up one
Just show
morning
up.
with
We'll
donuts.
see the silhouette of the hat in the
That's
window
right.
someday.
Andy Cap's here.
Handicaps here. Yeah, for sure. You and the paranormal dad's back.
yeah, we will.
We're going to schedule that before you walk out the door.
Yeah, sounds good. They'd love to be on too. We have some stories we could share.
See, and I'm glad. I know for a fact that Kugler Vision is very happy you were in today too. They love to see you as well. Kugler Vision has been supporting our podcast almost since the beginning, and they would like you to come see them. As a matter of fact, if you have glasses or contacts in particular, you can get rid of them.
That's right. Just be done. Get the consultation, and you sign up with the consultation at kuglervision.com. Mark the little Pat and JT podcast
Yes.
where you hear it so they know you heard it on our podcast. And it could change your life getting any sort of procedure that fits you because they offer all of them.
There are 7 different procedures, and they're the only ones that offer all of them, and they're the number 1 LASIK provider in the state. And there's a reason people travel a great distance to come to Kugler Vision. So yes, get online, schedule your consultation, find out what your possibilities are. You could even have it done the same day.
It's pretty awesome. So kuglervision.com, and thank them for supporting our podcast. It's Pat and JT.
Pat and JT Podcast. A Parkville Media Production.